Have you ever wanted to change something about yourself so badly that you'd try anything? Miracle products, secret treatments, alternative surgeries. It all sounds tempting, doesn't it? But now imagine waking up one day to realize that the promise of perfection came with a price far higher than you could have ever imagined. Intrigued? These are the stories of people who chased their dream transformations, only to find themselves trapped in a nightmare.
There's something I need to share. Something that still haunts me to this day. It's a story that replays in my mind every time I see someone blindly trusting a product they found online. This happened during my senior year of high school, and I've never been the same since. Senior year was absolute chaos for me. Between SATs, college applications, and the pressure to look amazing for prom, it felt like I could barely catch my breath. It was like everyone around me was exceeding expectations while I was just stuck in place. You know that feeling like the world's moving forward, but you're glued to the spot? And as if all of that wasn't enough, my skin was a complete disaster. Big, painful breakouts covered my face, and the scars they left behind made me avoid mirrors and photos altogether. One of those nights, while scrolling through TikTok, I stumbled across an ad. At first, it seemed like just another video, but when I paid closer attention, I realized it was about a juice that promised miracles. People swore it cleared up their skin in just days. It wasn't just the ad either. My For You page was flooded with testimonials. There were endless before and after pictures, all claiming they'd tried everything else, and this juice was the only thing that worked. It felt like the universe was sending me a sign. But sometimes, the signs don't come from a good place. The website looked so legit. It had a clean design with buzzwords like natural, vegan, and secret ingredients from South America. Who wouldn't trust that? It was affordable, shipping was quick, and all I could think about was how amazing it would feel to wake up one day and not be embarrassed to leave the house. When the juice arrived, I was excited. The packaging was sleek, minimalist, radiating those health and wellness vibes. That same night, I gave it a try. The taste. Awful. It was like drinking a mix of grass and something metallic. But I told myself, this is normal, right? Beauty hurts. The very next day, my skin felt less oily. By day 2, some of the breakouts started drying up. It was happening so fast it felt unreal, but at the same time, it was exactly what I wanted to believe. But quick miracles often hide dark consequences. By the end of the first week, even the stubborn red marks on my face began to fade. I couldn't believe my eyes. People at school started noticing. They asked me about my secret. For the first time in ages, I felt pretty confident even. But that confidence came at a price I wasn't ready to pay. By the 3rd week, things started getting weird. My mom was the first to notice. She complained that my room had a strange smell, something sour and chemical. At first, I thought she was overreacting, but soon I noticed it too. The smell clung to my bed sheets, my clothes. It was sweet, like rotting fruit, and no matter how much I washed, it wouldn't go away. Then, one day during PE, I felt a tingling sensation in my hands while exercising. When I looked down, there were yellow stains on my fingers, like I'd touched wet paint. I scrubbed it, but it wouldn't come off. My skin might have looked flawless, but my body was begging me to stop. Soon, my tongue started changing color. At first, it was just a faint pinkish tint, but then it turned purple, like I'd licked some kind of dye. My appetite vanished. And when my hair began falling out in clumps, I was overwhelmed with panic. I still had the juice bottle, so I decided to inspect the label more closely. To my horror, the ingredient list was full of long, unpronounceable chemical names. My heart raced as I read it. That night, I tried to find the website where I'd ordered it, but it was gone. Not just the site, every video, every ad, every person who had promoted the juice had disappeared. It was as if the juice had never existed, but it was still inside me. The next day, I took the bottle to my chemistry teacher. He was someone I trusted, and I hoped he could help. When he saw the ingredients, his face went pale. "You've been drinking this?" he asked, alarmed. When I nodded, he explained that some of the ingredients were toxic compounds, including heavy metals, substances that could cause neurological damage and harm to internal organs. I stopped drinking the juice immediately. When my parents found out, they were terrified and rushed me to get blood tests. The waiting felt like forever, but luckily the results showed no permanent damage. The doctors said I was incredibly fortunate. If I had continued, the effects could have been deadly. The scariest part, I never found out who made that juice. The website vanished, the ads disappeared, and the bottle had no contact information. It was like it never existed. Even now, I sometimes think I'd catch a whiff of that sickly, sweet, rotten smell. I know it's probably all in my head, but I can't shake the paranoia. Every time I see someone raving about a miracle product online, I can't help but wonder how many others might be going through what I did without even realizing the danger.
March of last year. I had finally saved enough money for something I had dreamed of for years. Getting cosmetic surgery on my face. It wasn't anything too drastic, you know. I just wanted a more delicate nose, something that suited me better. A simple adjustment, but one that meant the world to me. I spent months researching. I read reviews, looked into clinics, but the prices were outrageous. I was starting to think I'd have to give up, until a coworker mentioned an alternative doctor. According to her, he was an experienced surgeon who performed aesthetic procedures for a much more affordable price, outside the traditional circles. She even showed me before and after photos of people who had supposedly been his patients. The results looked flawless. At first, I was skeptical. It was a huge risk, and I knew it. But as weeks passed, the thought of finally achieving my dream started to outweigh my doubts. After a lot of deliberation, I reached out to him. That's when my life began to change, and not for the better. Sometimes, a dream that seems perfect is just the beginning of a nightmare. His office wasn't at all what I expected. It wasn't a sleek, modern clinic with bright, high-tech rooms. It was an old building with peeling paint and a musty smell in a rundown neighborhood. Still, he seemed professional. He wore a spotless lab coat, spoke with confidence, and showed me certificates and testimonials from supposed patients. Everything seemed convincing enough. He also explained the technique he used. According to him, it was an innovative method he had developed himself. He called it advanced tissue reconstruction. He promised natural results, a quick recovery, and almost no visible scarring. That last part won me over. I was so excited that I ignored the little voice in my head, warning me that something didn't feel right. I signed some papers that same day. He said they were confidentiality agreements, explaining that his technique was so exclusive he needed to protect his intellectual property. It felt odd, but he smiled and reassured me it was just standard procedure. The surgery was scheduled for the following week. Excitement can make us overlook signs we should never ignore. On the day of the operation, I was nervous but excited. The setup was simple but clean, and he seemed confident as he explained the final details. They sedated me quickly, and the last thing I remember was him saying, "You're going to look perfect." When I woke up, my life was never the same again. In the first few days, the swelling was much worse than I had expected, but he assured me it was normal, part of the process, he'd say. But even after the swelling started to go down, something felt off. My nose was different, yes, but it wasn't exactly what I had envisioned. Worse, there were small scars in strange places around it that didn't make sense. When I asked about them, he explained they were necessary incisions for his technique, helping to better shape the tissue. He told me to be patient, repeating once more, "Trust the process." And I did. But what he did to me was far beyond anything I could have imagined. By the third month, I started experiencing unbearable headaches. It felt like something was throbbing inside me, especially near the areas where I had scars. My face also began to stiffen, like the muscles were being pulled from within. Desperate, I tried reaching out to him. I called, sent messages, nothing. I went to his office, but the building was empty. The peeling walls were now covered in graffiti and dust. It was as if no one had worked there in years. Without answers, I turned to my coworker, the one who had recommended him. When I mentioned his name, she froze. At first, she pretended not to know who I was talking about. Then she denied ever recommending anyone. It was like she wanted to erase it from her memory. What had that man done to me? And why wouldn't anyone talk about him? Medical tests revealed there was something under my skin. Small metallic implants scattered across my face and even at the base of my skull. They didn't resemble any conventional medical materials like silicone or surgical plates. They had strange shapes, almost like tiny circuits. No one knew what they were or how they had been implanted. After that, I started having vivid dreams. Dreams so real they felt like memories. In them, I was lying in a cold room under harsh lights, surrounded by mechanical noises. Voices in an unfamiliar language echoed around me. When I woke up, my scars felt more sensitive, almost as if they were alive. I have no idea what that man did to me or why. My body was altered in ways I can't comprehend, and my face became an experiment. I filed a police report, but when it comes to underground clinics, it's almost impossible to find evidence or track down those responsible. They told me I'd likely never get answers. It was as if that man, and everything connected to him, had never existed. So, if you're thinking about undergoing any procedure outside the conventional system, I beg you, don't do it. The price you might pay could be far greater than you can imagine. I just wanted a prettier nose. In the end, I paid a price no amount of money could ever justify.
I need to share something that happened to me last year, back when I was still living in Seattle. It started out as a simple fitness challenge, but turned into one of the scariest experiences of my life. I've always been into physical challenges, those programs that promise fast, radical transformations. I genuinely believed that with enough effort and discipline, I could achieve the body I wanted. So, at the start of the year, when I saw an ad for something called the Apex Challenge, I was immediately intrigued. The program seemed different. It was exclusive, almost secretive. Only those who received an invitation could join. The promise was straightforward, jaw-dropping results in record time. The website didn't reveal much detail, which, looking back now, should have been a red flag. It was all very mysterious, with a minimalist design and vague phrases about total transformation and lasting change. Without overthinking, I signed up. A few days later, I received an email saying I'd been accepted. To participate, however, I had to sign a confidentiality agreement. At the time, I thought it was just a clever marketing tactic, a way to make the program feel more exclusive and premium. I signed it, excited for what was to come. I had no idea I was stepping into something that would change my life forever. The first meeting was in a building downtown. It wasn't what I expected. No modern gym, no motivational atmosphere with loud music and inspirational quotes on the walls. Just a small, almost empty room with no identifying signs. Inside, I met the other participants. Everyone had the same eager expression, but there was also something else, an unspoken tension in the air. A trainer greeted us. He spoke with authority, as if the Apex Challenge was far more than a fitness program. He kept repeating that this wasn't for everyone. Discipline, sacrifice, and trust in the process, he said. Those words stuck with me. They also emphasized the importance of the confidentiality contract, reminding us that breaking it would have serious consequences. I laughed it off at the time, thinking it was all part of the act to hype us up. At first, everything seemed normal. The diet was strict, of course. The workouts were intense, almost brutal. But I was used to pushing myself. There were weekly check-ins to track progress and receive personalized advice, and the results were coming in fast. Too fast. My body started transforming within weeks. But alongside the changes, things started happening that didn't make sense. After 2 weeks, they required us to undergo blood tests and body scans. It was mandatory. They said it was to better understand our bodies and tailor the program to us individually. Then they started tracking strange metrics, daily temperature, pulse, even oxygen levels. I didn't question it because the results were undeniable. My body was leaner, my endurance was improving, and my focus was sharper. But with these gains came a deep, unshakable exhaustion. By the 4th week, they introduced what they called advanced sessions. These were held at night, always in different buildings, far from the city center. When I arrived at the first one, I knew it was nothing like a typical workout. The room was bathed in red LED lights. The music was loud, with heavy tribal beats that seemed to vibrate through my body. The trainers were there, dressed in black, like they were leading some sort of ritual. That's when they introduced invasive methods. First came the injections. They said these were hormonal supplements designed to accelerate metabolism and maximize results. Then came something they called deep muscle stimulation, essentially electric shocks applied to specific areas of the body. Some participants hesitated. I almost refused too, but the trainers had a way of convincing us. They repeated, "If you want extraordinary results, you have to trust the process." And I did. In the weeks that followed, my body kept changing, but something was wrong. I felt drained, as if my energy was being siphoned away. Even with proper meals and rest, there were days I could barely get out of bed. I started having vivid nightmares almost every night. I'd dream about those red lights and the trainers' voices, speaking words I couldn't understand. In one dream, I saw a participant lying on the floor, surrounded by trainers who were doing something to him while he screamed. When I told one of the instructors about it, he just smiled and said, "That's part of the mental renewal process." He acted like it was no big deal. Around this time, I also noticed people disappearing. A girl named Amy, who I'd bonded with during workouts, stopped showing up. When I asked about her, they said she wasn't strong enough to continue. Then it was Brad, another participant. The same excuse. By the 7th week, things became even more disturbing. During one night session, they had us recite phrases together. "My body is a tool, my mind is moldable. I trust the challenge." We repeated these lines for minutes, and I swear it felt hypnotic. Some people started chanting like they were in a trance. In that moment, something clicked. I knew I had to get out. I emailed the coordinator, saying I wanted to quit. The next day, I received a curt reply. "Your contract does not allow withdrawal. Continue participating or face repercussions." That's when I realized how deep I was in. I started researching the Apex Challenge online but found almost nothing. Eventually, I stumbled upon an obscure forum where former participants shared their experiences. The stories were terrifying. They claimed Apex wasn't a fitness program. It was some kind of cult. One message stuck with me. "Get out while you still can. They won't let you leave easily." I stopped attending sessions despite their threats. Over the next few weeks, I received dozens of messages from trainers, some pleading, others almost threatening. One evening, while I was alone in a parking lot, I saw one of the trainers watching me from a distance. The fear was paralyzing. In the end, the only thing that saved me was moving out of state. My job transferred me, severing any ties Apex might still have had with me. But the scars remain. My body has never been the same, and I still have nightmares about those red lights and the voices. Sometimes it feels like something is still pulling me back. If I can give you one piece of advice, it's this. Don't dive into something without knowing exactly what it entails.
Who is behind that juice promising flawless skin? Or the underground surgeon who vanished without a trace? And what about the fitness program with its red lights and hypnotic voices? We may never get the answers, but the lesson remains. Be wary of anything that seems too easy, because cheap shortcuts can cost you dearly, and perfection might just be the gateway to a nightmare. Now let me ask you, have you ever experienced something as strange or terrifying as this? A product, a service, something that seemed too good to be true? Share your story with us at tunetofear@gmail.com. Who knows, it might inspire our next video. Speaking of upcoming videos, now's the time to hit like, subscribe, and share this with that one friend who loves a good shortcut. Just a heads up, rumor has it that anyone who watches without liking wakes up with a new blemish. And trust me, it won't be easy to figure out how to get rid of it. Are you willing to risk it?